Hey, welcome to the Inner Circle podcast, where growth minded leaders come together to build better businesses and better lives. I'm your host, Hector Alvarado. Here, we don't do theory, we share real lessons, real systems, and real strategies you can use right away. This is a community for people committed to growth, impact, and supporting each other on the journey. You're in the right room, my friends. Let's get started. Welcome, everybody. Appreciate everybody joining us today on another of our Inner Circle calls. And today's guest has built his career at the intersection of people, technology, and growth. As the CEO of Clearbridge Business Solutions, Ryan helps businesses navigate and manage IT, cybersecurity, automation, and process improvement in the real world, not just theory, guys. So this is a real deal. Today, we're lucky to have Ryan join us. Welcome to the Inner Circle, Ryan.
Thanks for having me.
Excellent, Ryan. We're excited to have you, and I'm super glad that you're able to make the time. I know you're a busy guy. You run several businesses outside of Clearbridge. You have many business ventures, but in your path, in your entrepreneur path, I'm curious to know, like, how did it go before the tech side? Like, let's take us back to the beginning. What's the origin story for Ryan Kononoff?
Yeah, I got into tech at a really young age. In on the home front, I had a dad that was very tech savvy. Was getting into things like dial-up internet and was curious about what could be done with computers. And so it started pretty early in the home, and then it also tied into school. So on the school front, I think it was grade 10. I got in trouble in the info processing class. I got sent out to the hall, and the teacher that dealt with me was the IT person in the school, and they kind of took me under their wing and taught me a bunch of things about IT as part of my discipline, as it
Wow.
turned out, and then ended up actually hiring me to manage IT by that summer in the school. So got some early experience in high school, having my first paid computer jobs.
Interesting. So from troublemaker to IT, like it all came together that way. That's cool. So, you run several businesses, as I said. So why don't you maybe describe a few of those for us so that we get a perspective of what you do day to day.
Yeah, sure. So I started Clearbridge in the early 2000s. It was started interestingly. So the name is Clearbridge, and I started the company or came up with the name while we were driving over a bridge. But the premise of the name Bridge and the reason that stuck with me was because throughout my career leading up to that point in time, I had seen how there were tech savvy people, and then there were business savvy people, and there really wasn't a lot of connection between those two. The tech savvy people were really focused on solving technology problems, and the
Yeah.
business people were focused on solving business problems, and the two weren't actually lining up. And so a lot of technology was, I always call it tech for tech's sake. So it wasn't actually solving the underlying problem. It was just solving the problem at the surface. And so started this company to try to bridge the gap between those two.
That's amazing. Wow. Now that puts it into perspective. Well, I've obviously been aware of the name Clearbridge for a number of years now, but I never heard the story. So that's amazing, Ryan. Great. Good to hear. Now, as we've been talking a little bit, and I know you describe yourself as a motivator, a mentor. And first and foremost, you're a father and husband. Before you wear the CEO hat, right? And so it's a very deliberate, identity choice. Like how does that shape up the way that you lead and the way that you build your businesses?
Yeah, I mean, it's life is all about priorities, right? Like there's infinite things that you can spend your time on, and so first and foremost, like my role, my job is to take care of my wife and make sure that my kids are, I'm setting them up for success as best as possible, teaching them the right lessons, and then from that comes the all of the different responsibilities I have on the business side. And so I see like the mentorship, like that's my role in life with my kids is to do what I can to set them up to be contributing adults to to our society. And when it comes to the business side of things, I really look at it the same way. Like, businesses are built built by people to serve people. And so if we aren't focused on how we go about doing that, and that's like leading people towards new opportunities, empowering them, developing them, then ultimately we've got a job. We're not building a real business. And so I've always been focused on how can I take and empower people to do their best work, to teach them new skills, and to give them responsibilities that excite them and motivate them and drive them forward. And that's ultimately how businesses can scale.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And you hit it right on with the focus on people development and establishing the right culture. And then, that then turns into the right accountability, the right focus point, and it starts to allow for scalability in a healthy way. So yeah, that's amazing. And I'm glad that you brought that up, because it's something that we've talked about that many times with the entrepreneurs. But seeing it from a lens that comes from technology, that's bridging it with the business world, that's a really cool dynamic. It is not something that we hear often from tech leaders that I've had an opportunity to talk to in the past. They don't focus on that. They focus on the tech offering and the tech solution. So it's a really cool dynamic and perspective that you bring. And so, as we've seen, your career has touched retail, higher education, banking, startups. So most people just pick a lane, but you didn't. Like, you have quite a wide, in business ventures. So maybe share with the team, how does it all connect, but also like give them a perspective of the many businesses that you're also involved in.
Yeah, I've always been a bit of a generalist, and part of that is just my curiosity to learn new things. I'm a life learner. I'm a if there's an opportunity to take on something new, or to learn a new skill, I have a hard time saying no to a lot of those things. And the superpower that's given me is the exposure to different industries and different types of work. And the common thread through that is, for me, has been technology for sure. But being able to see the application of a business problem and the solution, and how that was addressed in one industry, and to be able to apply that to another one, has been really important in my life. The whole idea and concept of solving business problems and not technology ones, that was ingrained in me early on when I worked in banking. Everything had to have a business case. Everything had to have ROI attached to it. And so often we look at technology as a shiny object, or as an easy implementation to solve this problem. But ultimately, if you focus on the business, you have to back up a little bit and understand, like, is this solving this problem that's in front of me actually going to create and compound into larger problems down line?
Yeah, that's interesting. You point the ROI on the IT investment, because a lot of what we've been talking through the past 4 weeks, in particularly to AI, like, noted that it was before you go and implement a shiny object. First, understand the business case, understand the ROI and the value you're looking to gain with this implementation. So I'm glad that you touched on it. But let's jump into Clearbridge, right? And we understand that Clearbridge sits, as an IT managed organization. You do cybersecurity. You do a lot of services around and processes around automation. Now, for a business owner who doesn't speak tech in the room, fluently, how do you explain what you actually do in the market today from a Clearbridge perspective?
Yeah, it's a good question. And it's one that's constantly changing and evolving. Like, if we back up 6 months, 12 months, the whole space has changed dramatically with the accessibility of AI tools and what we can do with them. We're focused on, when a problem is brought to us, we focus on trying to understand, is this a problem that's worth solving? Is there something off the shelf that we can apply to solve this problem, or do we need to build something custom?
Mhm.
And ultimately, it all leads back to how do we empower people to do their best work? So how do we help people to be multipliers in the organization? And like really simply put, sometimes that's making sure that they don't have to be the ones to fix a printer issue or to fix a phone issue, or Excel not working. And more strategically, it's how do we take this workflow, this paper-based workflow, or maybe it's even a digital workflow that has to be run by a human, and how do we
Mhm.
automate that so that it can happen in the background autonomously? And now we can take that person, going back to developing and empowering people to do their best work. How do we help them do the thing that's the highest and best use of their time, as opposed to the mundane task that was uh, only possible to be done by a human 6 months ago or 12 months ago?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Now, this model right now, that Clearbridge offers is relatively new to small business, sizes, that I see. And as this continues to grow in offering, why do you think that so many business owners resist bringing this kind of strategic tech into their businesses? Because we hear it often, right? We're like, what the excuses I hear, and you can tell me from your experience, is like they either don't understand the priority behind it, or they just don't feel that their business is big enough that warrants a tech plugin.
I would say technology is in some ways at the surface, it's easier than it's ever been to manage.
Hmm.
Um, but also there's so much technology out there that the complexity of managing all of the moving parts and keeping them all moving in the same direction has also escalated. And I think it's easy to it's easy to say, well, I'll just do that myself. Like I can do that. I know how to do that. I built the company. I
Right.
implemented, our first ERP system, or I implemented our first CRM. Like I know how to do it. I think where we find a lot of traction, and the reason that organizations struggle to understand the ROI associated with partnering with a company like ours, is that they don't necessarily value their time the way that maybe they should. Um, right.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you think of an organization that's bootstrapped, they've started from the ground up, and they've scaled, and they've never known what it's like to not have to think about what onboarding a new hire and finding a laptop and setting it up and creating user accounts and making sure that it's secure. Like if they don't have to, if they've done that, they only know what it's like to do that thing, and they don't know what they would otherwise do with that time. But when organizations understand the value of their time and their people's time, then all of a sudden you unlock uh, uh, so much capacity by partnering with an organization, outsourcing that function so you can focus on your core business. Um, that's why people resist it. It's
Yeah.
it's a it's a simple calculation that they haven't thought through, or haven't done, or aren't prioritizing.
I see it, and for me, I can tell you from my own personal experience, man, I couldn't survive if I didn't have tech support. Because I'm that, old school that struggles with technology. I love it. I am a big fan of tech, and I'm a big fan of AI, but I have a hard time taking a PDF and making it a Word document, or doing this or doing that. Like I struggle with some of that stuff, and like I like having the opportunity, the ability to call out a tech partner saying, "Hey, I need help with this. Like help solve this for me." And let my time be focused on the real priorities. Like there's a real ops fire, there's a real business fire that requires my time. That's where I need to be doing, not figuring out why this computer won't turn on, or why it won't connect to the internet, or whatever. Like those are the type of things that's not where I should be spending my time. And if you're a business unit leader, you have to take that, as you're saying, find your ROI, make sure you value your time appropriately and apply it to the right things. So that's a great point. Now, one of the things you started off with is, and you mentioned earlier, is that you're a big believer in people, people first. You talked about your leadership style, and in a field that's all about systems and technology, what does that actually look like when you're working with a client? How does that interaction look like live?
Yeah, well, I said earlier, businesses are built by people, and they're built to serve people. And so, taking the approach of how do we help people do the best work. Like we're talking about AI and technology, and at the end of the day, I believe that quite strongly believe that there's going to be like two kinds of jobs in the future, and one is really focused on relationships, and one
Mhm.
is focused on systems and essentially like managing the robots is how I often describe it. And so when we think about the relationship side of things, like if I can have my relationship people focus on relationships because the technology is out of the way and they can just get to the thing that they're doing. These are the people that interact with people, then that they're going to be far happier, more productive. They're going to get more work done for the business. And so the and to contrast that, people that are running the machines, if they can just focus on understanding the business processes and making sure that the automation is working and the support mechanisms and the systems are working to keep those processes moving forward, businesses will be the organization will be far more uh, successful as a result of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's critical, is that you define the people roles within tech deployment and tech priorities. So that's awesome. Now let's shift
I
gears a little bit. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, I think it's really, you know, people always worry about technology replacing people, and
Hmm.
the way I see it is that technology actually it becomes a superpower if you deploy it in the right way. Like, I can be a far more productive CEO. I can multiply my time far more times over with the right tools and technology in place, and that goes for anyone in the organization. And so making sure that I'm leveraging that relationship side, or like those two roles, right? Like,
Yeah.
let technology help those functions work at their best.
Absolutely. And as we shift into more of this, the topic of the day, which is AI and AI implementation in the real world, we just finished a four-part series about AI implementation, and we talked through various pain points. First, understanding. How do you select an AI tool? and and really focusing on the problem you're solving and the ROI you're looking to gain when selecting the AI process. And then we shifted into the getting buy-in, the understanding of the teams and people rejecting AI in the business today. And then we moved into quantifying a sustainable program that allows you to have AI as part of your SOPs, and that it becomes, another tool in your toolbox, and that it's not viewed as just a shiny object. In fact, it's a process that you leverage like you would, any other process in your operations or in your finance. It becomes, stacked into your everyday, business world. And so as we see this now becoming a real thing in today's world, and we know it's not a fad, we know this thing's not going away. So where do you see the biggest gap between understanding AI in theory and actually deploying it inside businesses?
Two things come to mind for me. The first is fear, fear of failure, fear of security um, issues that might come as a result of using the tool. I see a lot of that where I just don't trust it. I don't know where the data is. I don't want to break something. I've heard that AI can delete files on your computer if you install it. Like, all of the fear factor elements are one of the first ways, um, and I think is a big stumbling block. The other one is that people are often stuck in their world and way of doing things leading up to that point, and they
Hmm.
can't step back and sort of reimagine how that work could be done differently. And
Yeah.
so, I was on a meeting this morning and I was talking to the audience about uh, just telling AI what you're doing, and asking it if it would do that same task in a different way, and what those ways might be, and like being curious and actually bringing it along for the ride. Because as humans, we often, we overcomplicate things because we want to do it ourselves in the way that we've always done it. But if we're open to change, and we're okay with the risk of failure that I mentioned in the first reason, then you can kind of unlock all sorts of potential.
Excellent. Yeah, and we see that as we've been talking about it in our community, and I think we now have a lot of folks that are maybe turning the corner. Like they were skeptical, they were fearful, and they weren't willing to try. We have dipped our toes in the AI water over the last little bit, and so folks have had an opportunity to learn, and now it becomes about application. So we have business unit leaders as we have business owners on the call. Our members are interested to know, like, where would you suggest that they start if they're running their business today? Do you suggest there's a function? Is it operations? Is it customers facing systems? Is it internal workflows? What's the entry point, and particularly for those like those wanting a quick ROI, without really breaking what's already working?
Yeah, I think a good starting, like, the way I see it is everyone is using AI now because it's built into Google, and so like search is. I saw a stat the other day. It was like 70% of AI use is actually just search,
Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
we're already familiar with that experience of like the chat bot, and so taking it to the next level is telling it, bring it along for your ride or your work day, and bring it along for the ride and explain what you're doing, and ask for feedback and ways that you might do it differently. And then that is going to help build confidence around what it's suggesting, and you can just start trying things like, yeah, okay, let's try that. Show me what you would do with that spreadsheet, or show me what you would do with that report.
Mhm.
Just again, just being curious. And you can do that through a web browser. Like, you don't need to install anything on your computer to do that. And like anything, right? You have to build your comfort level up, build your trust up. And today we have examples of organizations that are, they have AI that just runs 24/7, and it's doing things on its own, and effectively thinking and acting like a human would, where you've got that trust, where you don't necessarily have to be the one clicking every button as work is being done. And so it's got to start with some basics, like find a way to build some trust by just describing the work that you're doing, and seeing how it would do it, and then experimenting.
So you wouldn't say like start with a particular function. You'd say, hey, let's let the
No.
organization play first and learn first.
Play is so important, and being willing to fail. I mentioned that earlier.
Yeah.
Like, just get in there and try it. Like, the reality is, there are some areas like, low hanging fruit around customer service, and you know uh, basic implementations of like an AI phone system. But if you get too caught in the use case, and you
Mhm.
and then you actually go down this rabbit hole, or it's just too narrow. Like, you've got to
Okay.
just get it into the organization, let your people play. And the most powerful use cases for AI, in my experience, have actually come from the people that are closest to the work and the process that needs to be improved. And so AI is going to surprise you around how it suggests you solve a certain problem. But you've got to empower your people to play with it. You've got to, whether you install it or just use it through a browser, tell it what you're doing, throw files at it, see what it does, and do it in a way that can start to build trust.
Yeah, excellent. And I like how you just finished with the fact that you want to build trust, because that leads into the next sort of obstacle to overcome is, yes, you want to encourage play, you want to encourage learn, but how do you break through the trust factor to those employees and those team members today that are fearful of their jobs? Because, we've all
Yeah.
seen it in our lifetimes where tech comes in, and the tech starts to remove humans. We've seen it already for the last 30 years since the tech age really came to be. So what do we tell our people now about AI and those that are fearful? Like, how do you approach it?
Yeah, I mean, automation and technology, even in very primitive forms, has always replaced humans in the functions that they were performing. But what it has enabled people to do is to move up the ladder and perform functions that are the highest and best use of someone's time. So if you even think about machinery, right? Like, I wasn't around in the Industrial Revolution, but I'm sure there were lots of people, that were fearful about it and in fact did lose their jobs. But those that adapted and were willing to learn a new skill and try to perform the work that they do in a different way actually found themselves probably with more fulfillment in life because they were doing something that was maybe less manual and more more exciting for them. So I think that's really important to consider. I think
Mhm.
talking about it's really important. Like the reality is that a lot of the work we do today is going to change in the future, and so making sure that people are empowered to be curious, they're empowered to think differently, and we're asking questions of them like, how do you think we could use AI in your department or in your role? What ideas do you have?
Yeah, absolutely. So engaging everybody and having them provide some skin in the game in a way, and that they could see the wins and have experience in sharing the wins and riding that.
Yeah. Yeah, we've seen, people run towards it and people run away from it. And,
Yes.
the people that run towards it are going to evolve and transition into totally new, exciting roles. And the people that run away from it are going to, there's going to be a time of reckoning that will come. But, ultimately, the earlier you talk about it, the more you empower people to explore it with you, the better off everyone will be.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Now, we have various ages, and demographics in the room today, and so in our listeners, through the social channels. But if we think about, the younger generation versus the older generation, and I'm classifying myself in there as now, Gen Xers, we're the older generation. How do we, how do you break through some of those challenges that come with the pushback from the senior leadership teams in most businesses that could be Gen Xers and early millennials?
Yeah, I think it's important to consider that this is happening whether we like it or not. Like the
Mhm.
world is changing and it's changing very fast. And so if you're not playing, if you're not exploring this world, your competitor is, and
Right.
they have a leg up on you as a result of that. And it's a
Mhm.
race. It's a race to figure out how you can apply uh, the multiplier effect that AI is bringing to every industry right now to your organization. And so if the hesitations that are there, I see them for sure. There are security risks that need to be considered. There
Yes.
are there are all sorts of considerations that need to go into this, but that's not a good reason not to be exploring it as rapidly as possible, because it's real and it's here and it's moving so quickly week over week, as far as the advances that it has.
Yeah, absolutely. And and that's the critical point to entice, those leadership teams is like if you're not moving towards it and learning about it, your competitors are. And soon enough, those competitors will leverage this as the advantage. And that's where efficiency, plays a part, productivity. You start to look at cost improvements, all of that is a real reason to start to learn and play with AI. So, but you made a point there, you talked about security and cybersecurity and how that is also a concern. Now, we have again various people that come to us and have said, look, I like it, I don't trust it. I'm afraid of the exposure, and how or what should business owners understand, about the risk that they're about to embark in when they start with AI integration?
Yeah. So when AI first, ChatGPT was kind of the first one that everyone was exposed to as far as chatbots go. When it
Mhm.
first came out, by default, it sort of learned from you, and you were essentially you were the product in the sense that it was being improved based on the information that you put into it. And since then, we've seen business and enterprise programs come out from all of the big companies like Google and Microsoft and Anthropic and the what that has enabled organizations to do is ensure that the company that you're using and that you've selected isn't actually learning from your data.
Okay.
It also allows you to control what can and cannot be done in these tools for your staff. And so it's important to have some policies and procedures and some guardrails in place to make sure that that the tools are being used the way that you want them to be used, that match the trust level that you have in your organization.
Yeah, yeah, I'm absolutely, like it's important that that you have boundaries, right, and that you understand that. And we talked a lot about, in particularly a week, 1 week in the 4-part series, we talked about creating your cybersecurity policy, and those that don't have them to go create one. Similarly, as we would have, back in the late 90s, early 2000s, and we talked about like your internet policies, and everybody had
Yeah.
to sign one, before you started browsing. And so, what would you recommend, to small business unit leaders here and entrepreneurs about how do they set that up? What should be included in a policy like that?
So a couple of things. If you've got an IT partner that you work with, they can help you with that. But more on point, this is a
Mhm.
great opportunity to use AI.
Right.
Ask ChatGPT, ask Claude, ask whatever AI tool you're already familiar with to draft you an IT security policy, and then use that as a template and make the changes that you feel most comfortable with around that. But having some guidelines in place for your staff is really important. Otherwise, you end up we see this, people are using all sorts of tools, and now you don't have any grasp on your data because you've got staff using ChatGPT and other staff using Gemini and other staff using Claude, and you don't know how it's set up and what controls are in place. So it's really important to have some guidelines in place and some policies and procedures.
Yeah, is there anything in particular, like, and I know AI would certainly be the where to go to help you write it. Is there
Yeah.
something that you would recommend that that the bot doesn't miss, that we want to make sure we put in there?
You know, Probably a year ago, I would have had a different answer for this, but the reality is it's going to create a pretty good template for you to start with. And
Okay.
beyond that, anytime you put a policy or procedure in place, you may want to consult with your legal counsel as far as, what you roll out to your staff. As a small organization, you probably get a good enough result out of AI today. Like the tools that everyone in this room has access to today through these platforms can do a pretty good job of creating and vetting some of these tools that'll get you up and running.
Okay, excellent,
Yeah,
excellent.
yeah.
So now we'll play a game soon enough here about, like, you've seen these in your socials and you got the expert that goes like S tier, A tier, B tier, C tier, D tier, and so on. And we'll play with what, maybe you select as the top AI tools for our audience that you would recommend that they use. So we'll line that up
Huh,
soon enough, okay?
sure.
We're curious to know your input on this. But my last question here, and then we'll open it up to the game and then pass it over to Willie for some questions on his side. But for the founder who's just sitting here today, who's listening and nodding along, but still doesn't know what to do to get going. Like, it's Monday morning, they're fired up, they've heard about AI, they've been thinking about it. what's the one move that you'll tell them to make Monday morning to get started?
Yeah. So if you're not using, if you don't have a paid account, that's a starting point. A lot
Okay.
of people choose to use these tools like the free version. It sounds like Alan's using the free version. Um, get a paid account because it's going to give you access to more capabilities than any of the free tiers, and you're no longer the product at that point.
Mhm.
I think that's very important. Uh, if you're looking at how can I roll out AI to my organization, then one thing to do is to run a survey or canvas your team and figure out like who are your champions, who's
Mhm.
already using it that you don't know about. We
Uh,
at Clearbridge we just built out a it's called Clearbridge AI Readiness Index, and it's basically a series of questions that your whole team can go through. And if you send me an email, I can send you a link to it. And the idea is to establish a bit of a baseline so you know where you are, so that you can figure out where you need to get to, and then you can remeasure that down line, right? So
right,
same as
right.
having some KPIs, like you need to understand where you are today. And through some of this dialogue and also through an assessment like that, and you can make your own up as well. Come up with a goal and then remeasure it. And I think it's really important to understand where your people are, because sometimes you'd be surprised who that AI champion is in your organization that's just not told you what they're doing or how they're doing it, or that they're doing things outside of work that you could actually benefit from by empowering them to do that inside your organization.
That's interesting. That's a very good, sort of approach. Yeah, learn from the people that you might already have that are playing with it now. Yeah, I like that. Isn't, again, it goes back to people, learn from your people, prioritize your people first versus the tools, and understand how they're feeling about it, how they're using it, and where they're looking to gain. So I like that. That's great, Ryan. Now let's play a quick little game. Oh, sorry, go ahead. You were gonna say something.
No, well, I was going to just quickly, you can tie that back to the fear factor of AI replacing jobs, right? Like when you
Mhm.
actually give someone the tool and empower them and say, like, hey, we know this is real. We actually want you to do something with this. And it might change the way you do work, but we want to empower you to be part of our journey there. And I think that's a positive way to approach that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Well, we'll play a quick game, and get your expertise and your thoughts and some of the tools that are out there. Again, we'll call it S tier, for that high-end model. We'll call it A tier for, yeah, we recommend it. B, where it's okay, C, where you might want to avoid it, and D, like, stay away. All right,
Okay.
so we'll start off with some easy ones. I'm sure everybody's is heard of ChatGPT. Where would you rank ChatGPT today?
Yeah, so ChatGPT is definitely S tier. And I will say that there's a game of leapfrog every week or every other week that takes place. But today, S tier.
S tier. Nice. All right. Gemini.
Uh, this is a tough one. Eh, you know, I would say probably A. But even just 30 days ago, it was different, and 30 days from now, it's going to be different as well. But I also, if you're doing a lot of image
Hmm.
work, Gemini is really good. It's good with recordings, and it's very inexpensive to use. A lot of you probably already have licenses for Gemini if you've got a Gmail account or like a business Google account.
Okay, excellent. Which you touched on one that I was going to talk on next, which was video content like Sora.
Yeah. I would say A.
A. Okay, good.
Yeah.
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 I've played around with it a little bit. Now, I don't want to be biased or anything, but my favorite, Claude.
Claude is S tier for sure for most things.
Okay, yeah,
Um,
let's hear it.
yeah. Yeah. Claude is like your good. So that Claude has a function called co-work, right? And Claude
Right.
can be a good companion to the work you're doing. you can install Claude on your computer, and it can actually interact with your computer. Now, OpenAI's ChatGPT also has a lot of that capability now through something called Codex.
Oh.
And so, um, yeah, but Claude is definitely the one that people are using the most to be that work companion, because it can
Mhm.
interact with your computer, your browser, your files, and the systems you're using.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for playing that round, Ryan. And we thank you for joining the inner circle today. But be curious to know, how do people connect with you? How do they find you? What are some of your socials, and what are some of your opportunities for people here to connect with you after the call?
Yeah, for sure. You can look me up on LinkedIn. It's Ryan. Last name is Kononoff, Kononoff, and there's only a few Kononoffs in the world. So if Ryan Kononoff pops up, it should be me. My email is ryan.kononoff@clearbridge.io, and email is a great way to reach me directly as well.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you so much for joining us. Ryan, our inner circle members and everybody that's joined us here, these are builders, these are doers, and they're certainly excited about moving forward with AI, because we've been talking about it for a month. Now they're wound up and they're ready to go. So I appreciate your knowledge and your expertise here today. That's a wrap for today's episode of The Inner Circle. If something in today's conversation resonated, inspired you, or gave you a breakthrough, please share it with someone you care about. The right idea at the right time can change someone's business and their life. So make sure you follow the show, leave a review, and stay connected with us, because this community is built on relationships, real support, and real growth together. Remember that clarity means nothing without action. So choose one insight from today, put it into motion this week, and notice the shift. Thank you for being part of this journey, for showing up for your growth, and for being part of the Inner Circle community. See you in the next episode, and let's keep growing together.